The morning sun beat down mercilessly on the dusty streets of Kano as 22-year-old Maria knelt on the front porch of her late parents' house, tears streaming down her face. Her Aunt Rebecca stood over her, wielding a worn leather slipper like a weapon, while her Uncle Samuel fumbled with a heavy padlock at the gate. "You cannot disgrace this family, Maria." Aunt Rebecca's voice cracked with fury. "After your parents died in that car accident, we took you in, fed you, clothed you, and this is how you repay us? By marrying a poor tailor without our permission." The slap came sharp and sudden. Maria's cheek burned as she instinctively reached for Daniel's hand. Her new husband, dressed in his only good shirt and carefully mended trousers, tried to shield her with his lean frame. Their 2 small bags lay scattered on the ground, spilling clothes and a precious photograph of Maria's parents, Ibrahim and Khadija, taken during happier times. "Get away from here." Uncle Samuel pointed, an accusing finger at Daniel. "You think because you can sew fancy clothes for rich people that you deserve our niece? You are nothing but a poor tailor who will bring shame to our family name." The other uncle, Musa, silently dragged their belongings to the gate and threw them into the dusty street. Neighbors gathered behind curtains and doorways, whispering and pointing. Maria felt her world crumbling around her as the padlock clicked shut with finality. "I don't even believe you're truly our brother's daughter," Uncle Samuel added coldly. "Real family would never bring such disgrace. Go find somewhere else to live where the community won't see you and laugh at us." Maria's heart shattered into pieces. This house held every memory of her loving parents. Her father teaching her to read under the neem tree, her mother braiding her hair while humming traditional songs. Now she was locked out her own heritage, cast away like refuse. "Please," she whispered to her aunt, "we have nowhere to go." Rebecca raised the slipper one final time. "You chose this path when you married beneath your station. Live with the consequences." As the gate slammed shut, Maria stared at the metal barrier that now separated her from everything she had ever known. The mango tree her father planted when she turned 10 was still visible beyond the fence, but it might as well have been on another planet. Daniel gently helped her to her feet, his calloused hands gentle on her shoulders. "Stand up, my love," he said softly. "Allah will provide for us." "How?" Maria asked, her voice breaking. "We have no money, no place to stay. What if they're right? What if I made a terrible mistake?" Daniel's eyes, warm and steady, met hers. "You didn't make a mistake. You chose love over status, truth over appearances. That takes courage." Just yesterday, they had exchanged vows at the local mosque in a simple ceremony. Daniel had worn his best traditional outfit, carefully sewn with his own hands, while Maria wore her mother's wedding dress, altered to fit. It wasn't elaborate, but it felt sacred and right. She remembered Daniel's promise. "I will support your dream of becoming a nurse, Maria. You will help heal the sick and care for children in our community. I swear before Allah, we will build a good life together." They had planned to return home and cook a simple meal of rice and stew to celebrate their union. Instead, they found her uncles and aunt waiting with fury and ultimatums. Now they stood in the street with 2 bags and shattered dreams. Maria picked up the photograph of her parents from the dust, carefully wiping it clean. Ibrahim and Khadija smiled back at her, frozen in happier times when love filled their small house. "Mama, Baba," she whispered, "I miss you so much." Before her parents' deaths in a terrible bus accident 2 years ago, Maria had been studying to become a nurse. Her father, a respected mathematics teacher, and her mother, who ran a small tailoring business, had encouraged her dreams of helping others. After their funeral, her uncles moved into the house and began making decisions about her future, decisions that always seemed to benefit them more than her. Daniel had appeared in her life like an answered prayer. He was quiet, respectful, and kind, a skilled tailor who crafted beautiful traditional clothing for weddings and celebrations. When other young men saw only her inheritance and family connections, Daniel saw her heart. He listened to her dreams of healing the sick and promised to support her education, even when his own income was modest. "I don't have wealth yet," he had told her honestly, "but I have skilled hands, a willing heart, and dreams of building something beautiful with you." Maria had said yes because she felt safe with him, because he treated her like a person rather than a prize to be won. Now, standing in the street with their belongings scattered around them, she felt that same leap of faith, but this time it felt like falling into an abyss. Daniel bent down and began collecting their scattered clothes. As he reached for his work tools, something caught Maria's eye. Hidden in the lining of his bag was something that made her freeze. The edge of what looked like an expensive smartphone, far too costly for a struggling tailor to afford. "Daniel," she said slowly, "what is that?" What is Daniel hiding from Maria? This story is about to take a turn that will shock you to your core. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because next chapter will reveal secrets that change everything. Drop a comment below. Do you think Maria made the right choice marrying for love? Let's see what happens next. Daniel's hand still on the bag as Maria pointed to the device barely visible beneath the torn lining. For a moment that stretched like eternity, their eyes met across the dusty street. The sound of the neighborhood, children playing, merchants calling, motorcycles puttering past, seemed to fade into silence. "Maria," Daniel said carefully, "there's something I need to tell you." Her heart began to race. After everything they had just endured, the humiliation, the rejection, being cast out like criminals, now there were secrets between them too? "What is that phone, Daniel? How can a tailor afford something so expensive?" Daniel glanced around at the watching neighbors, then back at his wife. "Not here. Please trust me for just a few more minutes." He pulled out the phone with steady hands and pressed a number. When he spoke, his voice carried an authority Maria had never heard before. "Ahmed," he said into the device, "bring the cars to Kano Road, near the old Ibrahim house." "Yes, now." "Cars?" Maria's mouth fell open. "Daniel, what cars? Who is Ahmed?" Her husband ended the call and took her hands in his callous ones. "The world you see isn't the whole world, Maria. I need you to trust me." They waited in the sweltering heat, while Uncle Samuel's harsh laughter drifted over the lock gate. The neighbors whispered and pointed, some shaking their heads in pity. Maria felt exposed and confused, clinging to Daniel's hand like an anchor in a storm. Then she heard it, the low rumble of approaching engines. 3 black SUVs turned onto their street, moving with the quiet power of expensive machinery. The vehicles stopped in perfect formation, and men in crisp uniforms stepped out. The lead driver approached Daniel and bowed his head respectfully. "Sir, we came as quickly as possible." Time seemed to stop. Maria stared from the man to the cars to her husband, her breath coming in short gasps. The neighbors' whispers grew louder, then suddenly quieter as the implications began to dawn on them. Daniel turned to Maria, his expression gentle but serious. "There's a part of my life I hid from you. I hid it because I needed to find something real." "Who are you?" Maria whispered, her voice barely audible above the sound of her own heartbeat. "Let me show you," Daniel replied, offering her his hand toward the lead vehicle. The door of the first SUV opened automatically, revealing leather seats and technology that Maria had only seen in magazines. As Daniel helped her inside, she caught glimpses of the neighbors pressing against their gates, Uncle Samuel's face appearing at a window, his expression shifting from smugness to confusion. Inside the luxury vehicle, Maria felt like she was dreaming. The interior smelled of expensive leather and subtle cologne. A screen flickered to life, showing a map of Kano with their route highlighted. "Daniel," she said, her voice shaking, "you told me you were a tailor. You said you were still building your business." Daniel took a deep breath, his eyes never leaving hers. "I am a tailor, Maria. That part was never a lie. But what I didn't tell you is that I'm also the CEO of Northern Textiles." Maria gasped. Northern Textiles was one of Nigeria's largest fashion and textile companies, known for producing traditional clothing that was exported across Africa and beyond. Everyone in Kano knew the company. It employed thousands and had made its founder incredibly wealthy. "But why?" she asked, tears starting to flow. "Why would you pretend to be poor?" Daniel's expression grew sad. "Because money changes everything, Maria. Every woman I met wanted the CEO, not the man. They saw the wealth before they saw my heart. I wanted someone who would choose me for who I was, not what I owned." He gestured to his simple clothes, the same outfit he wore when they first met. So I stripped away everything, the cars, the house, the title. I worked as a simple tailor in the market for months, using only my skills with needle and thread. I wanted to find someone who would love the man behind the money. Maria remembered all their conversations under the neem tree outside her parents' house. She had chosen Daniel because he listened to her dreams of becoming a nurse, because he promised to support her education even when he seemed to have so little. She had loved his gentle hands, his quiet wisdom, his respect for her goals. "Maria," Daniel said softly, "I meant every promise I made. You will finish nursing school. You will help heal our community. And I will stand beside you, not as a CEO, but as your husband." The convoy began moving through Kano streets, heading toward an area Maria had only heard about, the prestigious Jare where the city's wealthiest residents lived. As they drove, Daniel explained more. "I spent 6 months working in the market, learning what it meant to earn every naira through honest labor. I watched how customers treated me when they thought I was just another struggling tailor versus when they suspected I might have money. It taught me everything about human nature." The cars slowed as they approached massive gates flanked by security guards. The compound beyond was like a small city, manicured gardens, fountains, and a house that looked more like a palace than a home. "Welcome to our home, Maria," Daniel said as guards saluted respectfully. Maria stepped out onto marble walkways lined with roses and jasmine. The house rose before them like something from a dream, white walls, tall columns, and windows that sparkled in the afternoon sun. "This can't be real," she whispered. "It's real," Daniel assured her. "And it's yours now, too." As they walked toward the entrance, Maria thought about her uncles and aunt, probably still standing at their lock gate, unaware that they had just cast out a woman who was now walking into unimaginable wealth. But even as servants hurried forward to welcome them, Maria felt overwhelmed. Just hours ago, she was begging for a place to sleep. Now she was entering a mansion that could house her entire neighborhood. "Daniel," she said, stopping on the marble steps, "I don't belong here." He turned to her, cupping her face gently. "You belong wherever love is, Maria. And I love you, not because of where you came from or what you can give me, but because of who you are." As they entered the cool, elegant interior, Maria wondered if this was all a dream from which she would soon awaken. But Daniel's hand in hers felt real, warm, and steady, the same hand that had held hers when they were cast out into the street. Tomorrow, she thought, she would have to learn how to live in this new world. But tonight, she was simply grateful to be safe, loved, and no longer alone. Can you believe this incredible transformation? From the streets to a mansion in just one day. But wait until you see what happens when Maria's family discovers the truth. Hit that like button if this twist amazed you. And don't forget to subscribe because next chapter will show you exactly how the tables turn. What do you think Uncle Samuel's reaction will be? 3 days passed in a whirlwind of adjustment for Maria. The mansion, which had initially felt like a dream, began to feel more real as Daniel patiently showed her around their new life. She had her own study for nursing textbooks, a library filled with medical journals, and staff who treated her with genuine respect. But on the 4th morning, the peace was shattered by aggressive pounding on the mansion's ornate front doors. "Maria, open this door immediately." Uncle Samuel's voice boomed through the reinforced wood, loud enough to wake the entire household. Maria's blood ran cold. She was in the breakfast room with Daniel, discussing her upcoming enrollment at the University of Kano's nursing program, when the shouting began. "How did they find us?" she whispered, her hands trembling as she set down her teacup. Daniel's jaw tightened. He pressed a button on the wall, and a large screen descended, showing the security feed from outside. There stood Uncle Samuel, Aunt Rebecca, and Uncle Musa, along with a small crowd of neighbors who had apparently followed them to witness whatever confrontation they planned. "Shameless girl," Aunt Rebecca shrieked at the camera. "You hide in this rich man's house like a thief. Come out before we drag you out ourselves." Daniel stood calmly and walked to the intercom system. "You have no business here. Leave immediately or I will call security." "Security?" Uncle Samuel's voice cracked with nervous laughter. "Who do you think you are, poor tailor? We know you're hiding our niece. Return her to us now." Maria watched the screen as more neighbors gathered, whispering and pointing at the mansion. Some looked impressed by the obvious wealth. Others seemed confused by the situation. Her uncles, however, appeared undaunted by the luxury surrounding them. "Let me handle this," Daniel said quietly. But Maria surprised herself by standing up. "No," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "They need to hear this from me." Daniel studied her face, then nodded. Together, then... The massive doors opened slowly, revealing Daniel and Maria standing in the marble-floored foyer. Behind them, crystal chandeliers caught the morning light, and priceless traditional art adorned the walls. Uncle Samuel blinked in confusion. "Tailor boy, where did you steal all this?" Daniel's response was calm and measured. "I didn't steal anything. I built it." "Built it?" Aunt Rebecca cackled. "With what?" "Thread and needles." "With vision, hard work, and the blessing of Allah," Daniel replied. Then he did something that made the entire crowd gasp. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Ahmed, please run the files." Within minutes, a well-dressed man appeared carrying a leather portfolio. He handed it to Daniel with a respectful bow. "These," Daniel said, opening the portfolio, "are the incorporation papers for Northern Textiles, the largest traditional clothing manufacturer in northern Nigeria. These are the tax records showing we employ over 3,000 people. And this," he held up a magazine, "is last month's Business Nigeria featuring me as one of the country's youngest billionaires." The silence that followed was deafening. Uncle Samuel's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Aunt Rebecca's slipper, raised for another attack, slowly lowered to her side. "Impossible," Uncle Musa finally whispered. A black car pulled up behind the crowd, and a distinguished man in traditional Ibada stepped out. Maria recognized him from television. Alhaji Suleiman, one of Kano's most prominent businessmen, and a regular guest on economic programs. "Daniel, my boy," the older man called out, embracing Daniel warmly. "I heard you returned from your sabbatical, and this must be your bride. Mashallah, she's beautiful." The crowd murmured in amazement. Here was one of Nigeria's most respected business leaders, treating the poor tailor like family. "Uncle Suleiman," Daniel said respectfully, "meet my wife, Maria." "The nursing student?" Alhaji Suleiman smiled warmly. "Daniel told me about your dreams of serving the community. Noble work, my dear. We need more young people with such dedication." Maria found her voice. "Thank you, sir." Uncle Samuel, finally recovering from his shock, stepped forward aggressively. "This is nonsense. Some elaborate trick. Maria belongs with her family, not with some what?" Daniel's voice carried a steel edge for the first time. "Some man who loves her? Some man who will support her education and dreams? Some man who won't beat her for choosing her own path?" Alhaji Suleiman's expression darkened as he looked at the uncles. "These are the relatives who mistreated her?" "They locked her out of her own parents' house," Daniel confirmed. "Beat her with slippers for marrying me. Called her a disgrace." The older businessman's face showed deep disapproval. "Shame on you. Instead of protecting the daughter your brother left behind, you made her life miserable. And now you come here making demands? Have you no fear of Allah's judgment?" The crowd's mood was shifting. Neighbors who had come to watch drama were now witnessing something else entirely. The exposure, cruelty, and the vindication of true love. But Maria knew her relatives well. They wouldn't give up easily. "This isn't over," Aunt Rebecca hissed, loud enough for Maria to hear. "That girl will pay for this humiliation." A chill ran down Maria's spine. She knew that tone, had heard it many times before when her aunt planned some particularly cruel punishment. Even surrounded by wealth and protection, she felt the old fear creeping back. Daniel must have sensed her tension. He moved closer, his hand finding hers. "You're safe here, Maria. They can't hurt you anymore." But as the crowd began to disperse and her uncles retreated with murderous expressions, Maria wondered if anyone was ever truly safe from family members who felt wronged. That evening, as they sat in their beautiful garden watching the sunset, Maria voiced her concerns. "They won't accept this, Daniel. They'll find a way to cause trouble." Let them try, he said confidently. Truth has a way of protecting itself. Neither of them knew that at that very moment, Aunt Rebecca was making phone calls to local radio stations, newspapers, and anyone who would listen, spinning a story about a poor orphan girl who had been brainwashed and kidnapped by a wealthy man pretending to be humble. The real battle was just beginning. The truth is out, but you know Maria's family won't give up that easily. When people feel humiliated, they often fight back harder than ever. What kind of scheme do you think Aunt Rebecca is cooking up? Smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, because next chapter will show you just how dirty this family feud is about to get. Let me know in the comments. Do you think Daniel and Maria are really safe now? Maria woke to the sound of her phone, buzzing incessantly. Still drowsy, she reached for it, expecting messages from her nursing school classmates. Instead, she found dozens of notifications from social media apps she rarely used. "Daniel," she said, shaking her husband awake. "Something's wrong." As Daniel sat up, his own phone began ringing. Then another phone in the house started chiming. Within minutes, it seemed like every device in the mansion was demanding attention. Maria opened her social media and gasped. The first post she saw made her stomach drop. Poor orphan girl kidnapped by fake billionaire. Family begged for help. Below the headline was a video of Aunt Rebecca, tears streaming down her face, speaking into a microphone held by a local news reporter. "My brother's daughter was a good girl," Rebecca sobbed convincingly. "But this man, this Daniel, he pretended to be poor to trick her. He brainwashed her, turned her against her family. Now, he keeps her locked in that mansion like a prisoner. We just want our child back." The video had already been shared thousands of times. Comments poured in. This is why parents should choose their daughters' husbands. Poor girl, she doesn't know she's being used. These rich men think they can buy anything, even naive village girls. But there were other comments too. "Wait, isn't this the same family that threw her out? I saw the videos from last week. Something doesn't add up here." Maria scrolled frantically, finding more posts. Uncle Samuel had given an interview to a popular radio station. Uncle Musa had spoken to a newspaper, and somehow they had convinced several concerned community members to join their campaign. Daniel was on his phone with his public relations team, his voice calm, but his eyes hard. "No, we don't respond to lies with anger. We respond with facts. Prepare the documentation, the marriage certificate, the witnesses from the mosque, everything." He hung up and turned to Maria, who was still staring at her phone in horror. "They're calling me a gold digger," she whispered. "They're saying you kidnapped me, that I'm being held against my will." "Maria, look at me." Daniel's voice was gentle but firm. "These are lies. The truth will come out." But even as he spoke, Maria could see the concern in his eyes. False stories, especially ones that played into existing prejudices about wealth and power, could spread faster than truth. By noon, protesters had gathered outside the mansion gates. Not many, perhaps 20 people, but enough to attract more media attention. They held signs reading "Free Maria" and "Stop Rich Man's Abuse." Maria watched from the window, feeling sick. "They don't even know me," she said. "They don't know what my family put me through." Daniel was busy with lawyers and PR specialists, but he took time to sit with his wife. "This will pass, Maria. But I need you to know, if this becomes too much, if you want to walk away from all of this, I'll understand." "Walk away?" Maria looked at him in surprise. "Daniel, I didn't marry you for your money. I didn't even know about it. I married you because you're kind, because you listen to my dreams, because you make me feel safe. Do you think a few lies will change that?" Relief flooded Daniel's face. "I hoped you'd say that, but I needed to be sure." That afternoon, Daniel's team arranged a press conference in the mansion's garden. As cameras set up and reporters gathered, Maria felt her nerves building. She had never spoken to media before. "Just tell the truth," Daniel advised. "Speak from your heart." When the cameras started rolling, Daniel stepped forward first. His voice was clear and confident as he addressed the assembled media. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Recent reports about my wife and myself contain serious falsehoods that need to be addressed. He gestured to Maria, who stood beside him in a simple but elegant dress. "This is my wife, Maria. She is here of her own free will, as she has been since the day we married. She is not a prisoner and not a victim, and certainly not someone who is tricked or coerced." Maria stepped forward, her voice initially shaky but growing stronger. "3 weeks ago, my uncles and aunt threw me out of my own parents' house because I married the man I loved. They beat me, called me names, and locked me out with nothing but the clothes on my back." She held up photos on her phone, images from that terrible day, showing her kneeling in the dust while Aunt Rebecca raised a slipper over her. "These same people who now claim to want me back were the ones who said I was no longer family. The only reason they want me now is because they discover my husband is successful." A reporter raised her hand. "But why did your husband hide his wealth from you?" Daniel answered, "Because I want to know that whoever I married loved me for who I am, not what I own. I worked as a simple tailor for months, earning a living with my hands, because I wanted an honest relationship built on real feelings." "And it worked," Maria added, looking at Daniel with obvious affection. "I fell in love with a kind, hard-working man who listened to my dreams and promised to support my education. The money was just a surprise, a wonderful one, but not the reason I chose him." Another reporter pressed, "What about your family's claims that you're being held against your will?" Maria's voice grew firmer. "I am a grown woman. I can speak for myself. If I were truly being held prisoner, would I be standing here freely, speaking to all of you? Would I be starting nursing school next month, as my husband has arranged?" The questions continued for nearly an hour. Some were hostile, some were sympathetic, but Maria found her confidence growing with each answer. She wasn't the frightened orphan her relatives had described. She was an intelligent young woman who had made her own choices. As the press conference ended, Maria noticed a commotion at the gates. Aunt Rebecca and Uncle Samuel had arrived, apparently hoping to disrupt the event. They were shouting at the guards, demanding to be let in. Daniel noticed too. He made a decision that surprised everyone. "Open the gates," he instructed the guards. "Let them in." "Daniel, no," Maria protested, but he shook his head. "It's time to end this properly." Aunt Rebecca and Uncle Samuel strode into the garden, their faces twisted with anger and frustration. The cameras immediately turned toward them, capturing every word. "Lies!" Aunt Rebecca shrieked. "All lies. This girl has been brainwashed." Uncle Samuel pointed accusingly at Daniel. "You think your money makes you better than us? You stole our daughter." "Your daughter?" Daniel's voice was dangerously quiet. "The same daughter you threw into the street like garbage?" He nodded to his assistant, who handed him a tablet. "Let me show everyone what really happened." On the screen appeared security footage from across the street from Maria's family home. Footage from the day they were thrown out. The video clearly showed Aunt Rebecca beating Maria with a slipper, Uncle Samuel dragging their belongings to the street, and the family's cruel words as they locked the gate. The watching reporters gasped. This wasn't a loving family concerned for their daughter's welfare. This was documented abuse. "You see," Daniel said quietly, "the only kidnapping that happened was when I rescued my wife from people who claimed to love her but treated her like dirt." Aunt Rebecca's face went pale as she realized their lies had been exposed on camera. Uncle Samuel tried to grab the tablet, but the guard stepped forward. As the media swarmed around her relatives with hostile questions, Maria felt something shift inside her chest. For the first time since her parents' death, she felt truly free. The lies are crumbling, and the truth is coming out. But you know this story isn't over yet. People who have been exposed like this often become even more dangerous. Hit that subscribe button because the final chapter will show you exactly how this family drama concludes. What do you think Maria will do with her newfound freedom? Let me know in the comments below. 5 years had passed since the dramatic press conference that exposed her relatives' lies. Maria stood in the courtyard of what had once been her childhood home, but the building behind her was completely transformed. Where her father's modest house once stood, a gleaming medical clinic now served the community. The Ibrahim and Khadija Memorial Health Center bore her parents' names in gold letters above the entrance. Inside, modern equipment hummed quietly while nurses, including Maria herself, now a qualified RN, provided free health care to families who couldn't afford private medical care. Today was the clinic's official opening ceremony. Local government officials, community leaders, and dozens of families filled the courtyard. Children who had received free immunizations played near the mango tree. The same tree her father had planted years ago, now fuller and stronger than ever. Daniel stood beside her, holding their 2-year-old son, Ibrahim, named for her father. Their daughter, Khadija, just 6 months old, slept peacefully in Maria's arms. Both children would grow up knowing their grandparents' story and carrying their legacy forward. Mama, Baba, Maria whispered to the portrait of her parents mounted near the clinic entrance. We kept the dream alive. The opening ceremony was everything she had hoped for. The governor of Kano State cut the ribbon, praising the clinic as a model for community health care. Doctors from the teaching hospital spoke about the partnership that would bring specialists to underserved areas. Most importantly, mothers lined up with their children, grateful for accessible medical care. As the formal speeches concluded and the crowd began to disperse, Maria noticed familiar figures standing uncertainly at the edge of the courtyard. Her breath caught as she recognized Aunt Rebecca and Uncle Samuel, looking older and worn down by the years. They approached slowly, hesitantly. Maria handed baby Khadija to Daniel and walked toward them, her heart pounding but her steps steady. Maria, Aunt Rebecca said quietly, her voice lacking its old harshness. We came to apologize, Uncle Samuel finished, his voice barely above a whisper. We were wrong, terribly wrong. They looked like different people from the angry relatives who had once terrorized her. Uncle Samuel's shoulders were bent, his expensive clothes replaced by simple, worn garments. Aunt Rebecca's eyes held genuine regret instead of calculated cruelty. We lost everything, Uncle Samuel continued. After the truth came out, our businesses failed. Our friends turned away. Our children won't speak to us. We've had years to think about what we did to you. Maria studied their faces, seeing real remorse for the first time. What do you want from me? Nothing, Aunt Rebecca said, tears starting to flow. We don't deserve anything. We just wanted you to know that we understand now. We were jealous, greedy, and cruel. We took out our anger on an innocent girl who had already lost her parents. Uncle Musa, who had remained silent throughout their previous encounters, stepped forward. Your father will be ashamed of how we treated you. Ibrahim was a good man who loved his daughter. We dishonored his memory. The courtyard had grown quiet. Other attendees, sensing the gravity of the moment, had stepped back to give them privacy. Daniel watched from a distance, ready to intervene if needed, but clearly recognizing that this was Maria's moment to handle. You hurt me deeply, Maria said, her voice steady. You made the worst time of my life even harder. You tried to take away my right to choose my own husband, my own path. Yes, Uncle Samuel nodded, tears flowing freely now. We did all of that and worse. Maria looked past them to the clinic, where nurses were already preparing for the next day's patients. She thought about her parents, about forgiveness, about the kind of person she wanted her children to see in their mother. But holding on to anger would only poison my own happiness, she continued. My parents taught me that forgiveness isn't about excusing wrong behavior. It's about freeing yourself from bitterness. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I forgive you, but forgiveness doesn't erase consequences. The trust between us is broken, and it can't be rebuilt with words alone. Aunt Rebecca sobbed, covering her face with her hands. We don't expect anything. We needed you to know we're sorry. Your parents would be so proud, Uncle Musa said, looking at the clinic. This is exactly what Ibrahim always dreamed of, helping the community, using education and kindness to make life better. Maria felt Daniel approach with their children. Little Ibrahim reached out his hands toward his mother, babbling happily. The sight of the next generation seemed to put everything in perspective. These are your grandchildren, Maria said to her relatives. Ibrahim and Khadija. They'll grow up knowing their family history, all of it, including the mistakes and the redemption. She paused, making a decision that surprised even herself. If you're truly sorry, if you want to honor my parents' memory, then prove it through actions. There's always work to be done here at the clinic. Cleaning, organizing supplies, helping families navigate the system. No pay, just service. Uncle Samuel's eyes widened. You would trust us to help? I would give you a chance to show that your apology means something, Maria corrected. One chance. As her relatives walked away, discussing quietly among themselves, Daniel joined Maria with their children. Are you sure about this? He asked gently. Maria looked around at the bustling clinic, the families receiving care, the children playing safely in the courtyard. Mama always said that forgiveness is the key that unlocks the future. I don't want our children to inherit anger and bitterness. That evening, as the family sat together in their mansion, Maria reflected on the journey that had brought them here, from the dusty street where she had knelt in despair to the marble halls of wealth, from immediate storms to this moment of peace. Every step had shaped her into the woman she was now. Tell me the story again, Mama, Lil Ibrahim demanded, though he was really too young to understand. Maria smiled, settling her son on her lap, while Daniel held their daughter. Once upon a time, there was a girl who thought her world had ended when her family locked her out. But what she didn't know was that Allah was preparing something beautiful for her future. As she began the familiar tale, Maria realized that the story wasn't really about wealth or revenge or even forgiveness. It was about discovering that love, real, honest love, could transform even the darkest circumstances into something bright and meaningful. Outside, the lights of Kano twinkled in the distance, and tomorrow would bring new patients to the clinic, new opportunities to serve, and new chances to build the kind of legacy her parents would have been proud of. The next morning, Maria was surprised to find Uncle Samuel and Aunt Rebecca waiting at the clinic entrance before it officially opened. They wore simple clothes and carried cleaning supplies they had purchased themselves. We're ready to work, Uncle Samuel said quietly. No expectations, no demands, just service. Maria nodded, showing them to the supply room where medical equipment needed organizing and inventory. As she watched them begin their humble tasks, she felt a peace she hadn't experienced in years. Daniel found her there an hour later, checking on their first day of volunteer work. How are they doing? Like people who finally understand the difference between serving others and serving themselves, Maria replied. Over the following months, her relatives proved their sincerity through consistent action. They arrived early, stayed late, and treated every patient with the respect they had once denied Maria. Slowly, carefully, trust began to rebuild. Not the blind trust of childhood, but the cautious respect between adults who had learned hard lessons. The clinic thrived, serving over 1,000 families in its first year. Maria completed her nursing specialization in pediatric care, fulfilling her dream of helping children in her community. Daniel expanded Northern Textiles to include a training program for young tailors, giving opportunities to youth from backgrounds similar to his own. Their children grew up visiting the clinic regularly, learning early that privilege comes with responsibility. Lil Ibrahim would toddle between the beds, bringing smiles to sick children, while baby Khadija gurgled happily in the arms of grateful mothers. On quiet evenings, Maria would sit in the garden with Daniel, watching their children play under the same stars her parents had once wished upon. The pain of loss would always be part of her story, but it had been transformed into purpose, healing, and hope. Do you ever regret it? Daniel asked one evening. The difficult path that brought us together? Maria looked at her family, at the clinic visible in the distance, at the life they had built from ashes and dreams. Never, she said softly. Sometimes the most beautiful gardens grow from the darkest soil. The story that had begun with locked gates and broken hearts had become one of open doors and healing hands. And in the end, that transformation was worth every tear, every struggle, and every moment of doubt along the way. Years passed, and the Ibrahim and Khadija Memorial Health Center became a model replicated across northern Nigeria. Maria's work caught the attention of international health organizations, leading to partnerships that brought advanced medical equipment and training to rural communities throughout the region. On her 30th birthday, Maria received an unexpected visitor at the clinic. A young woman, barely 18, arrived with bruises on her arms and fear in her eyes. She had been thrown out by her family for refusing an arranged marriage to an older man she didn't love. Please, the girl whispered. I heard you help people like me, people with nowhere to go. Maria looked at her and saw herself 7 years earlier, desperate, alone, but still holding on to hope. Without hesitation, she opened her arms and her home to another young woman who needed a second chance. That night, as Maria tucked the girl into a safe bed in their guest house, Daniel found his wife standing on their balcony, looking out over the city lights of Kano. What are you thinking about? He asked softly. I'm thinking about how Allah works, Maria replied. I used to believe my suffering was punishment for something I had done wrong. Now I understand it was preparation for something I needed to do right. She gestured toward the guest house where the young woman was finally sleeping peacefully. Every person we help, every life we touch, it all started because someone locked a gate against me. What seemed like my ending became my beginning. Daniel wrapped his arms around her from behind. And now you're someone else's beginning. The next morning, Maria introduced a young woman, Fatima, to the clinic staff and explained that she would be staying with them while pursuing her education. It was a pattern that would repeat many times over the years, as word spread that the Memorial Health Center was more than just a medical facility. It was a sanctuary for those who had been cast out by their own families. Uncle Samuel and Aunt Rebecca, now in their 60s, had become the clinic's most dedicated volunteers. They had learned to recognize the signs of family abuse and were often the first to offer comfort to young people seeking refuge. Their transformation from Maria's tormentors to protectors of other vulnerable youth was perhaps the most remarkable redemption of all. As Maria watched Fatima help organize medical supplies alongside her former aunt and uncle, she marveled at how completely their lives had changed. The cycle of rejection and cruelty had been broken, replaced by a legacy of acceptance and healing. 10 years after that terrible day when she knelt in the dust outside her childhood home, Maria stood before the Nigerian Minister of Health, receiving a national award for her contributions to community health care. In her acceptance speech, she spoke about the power of turning pain into purpose. Every locked door in your life is preparing you to open doors for others, she told the assembled dignitaries and healthcare workers. Every rejection teaches you how to offer acceptance. Every moment when you felt worthless prepares you to help others discover their worth. The audience rose in thunderous applause, but Maria's eyes found Daniel and their children in the front row. Ibrahim, now 12, was already talking about becoming a doctor like his mother. Khadija, 10, wanted to be a teacher like her grandfather had been. Both children understood that their privilege came with the responsibility to serve others. That evening, the family returned to Kano and visited the cemetery where Maria's parents were buried. The headstones were now surrounded by a beautiful garden maintained by clinic volunteers. Fresh flowers appeared there every week, placed by families whose lives had been touched by the Memorial Health Center. Mama, Baba, Maria whispered to the stones, your daughter didn't just survive. She learned to help others thrive. As they walked back to their car, little Khadija slipped her hand into her mother's. Mama, will you tell us a story again? About how you and Daddy met. Maria smiled, looking back at the clinic lights twinkling in the distance, knowing that tomorrow would bring new patients, new hope, and perhaps another young person who needed to know that being locked out of one door often means you're about to walk through a better one. Once upon a time, she began, there was a girl who thought her story was ending, but Allah was just turning the page to a beautiful new chapter. The story that had begun with tears and rejection had become a legacy of love that would continue for generations. Sometimes the most broken beginnings create the most beautiful endings, and the greatest blessing is discovering that your pain has purpose when it helps heal others. What an absolutely incredible transformation from a broken orphan to a healer who breaks cycles of pain for others. Maria didn't just overcome her trials. She turned them into triumph for countless people. This is what real victory looks like. Which moment in this journey moved you the most? Drop a comment and let me know how this story inspired you. If this tale of turning wounds into wisdom touched your heart, smash that like button. Subscribe for more powerful stories of redemption, and share this with someone who needs to know that their current chapter isn't their final chapter. Remember, every setback can become a setup for an incredible comeback. Until next time, keep believing that your story can inspire others to rewrite theirs.